Welcome to the third episode of Square Talk. My name is Philip. I'm your host as well as a content and brand manager at Squareshot, a product photography service based in the US. Today we're going to speak with Dylon York. He is a photographer and art director out of Orlando, Florida, who has recently launched a creative studio called Poolboy alongside his partner Chris Ludwig. Prior to that experience, he has worked as a creative director at Corkcicle and produced content for collaborations such as Rifle Paper Company, as well as Star Wars, just to name a few. Well, let's get into the episode. Okay, so this is the third episode of Square Talk. Welcome, Dylon. I'm so happy to see you. You are a busy man, so I'm grateful that you made some time to sit down and talk to us. So I want to begin by talking about a little bit how we met, how we know each other, and the backstory of how essentially Dylon and Corkcicle that we're gonna go into connected with Squareshot. Do you remember when this happened?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and it had to have been almost 5 years ago. I think.
Yeah, around that time.
I think I just searched online I was looking for product photography, and there was a handful of options out there. And I think I found you guys, and I started emailing, and it had to have been Alex or Alice.
Definitely Alex, yeah, at the very beginning.
Yeah, and it was just like, it was the right fit. It felt good at the time, so we just kind of just did a test and did it, and then we're 5 years later, and I couldn't tell you how many orders we've done with you guys, so we're super grateful. I want to say too, thank you for having me. Thank you, Alex. Very appreciative of Squareshot. So you guys have been a great partner for so long, and I'm excited about the new podcast. So this is cool.
Cool, awesome. Actually, like when we were just launching the podcast, you were the first guest that I thought about, because I've known about Corkcicle way before even my time at Squareshot. And when we started working together, the only thing that I realized right off the bat, is that you and Corkcicle are the perfect client to have. And that was specific because you understand the process. You are a photographer yourself, right? And then sort of you understanding the process kind of aligned the expectations between each party. And in that way, the process was, much simpler, and, there was a lot of thought put into it. You understand how nuanced it can be, and, the reasons why it can take the amount of time it takes, right? So, but before we jump into Corkcicle, I'd like to begin with a little bit of your background. And I think it's fair to start with Yamaha, right? Was that your first kind of big gig?
It really was. Before that, I grew up in the South, and I just dreamed about playing music and being in a band and surfing and going to the beach. That was my dream. So the driving force was playing music, and I've meandered my way and found myself a job at Yamaha. And that's Yamaha, like pianos and keyboards and that kind of stuff. So most people think of motorcycles or four-wheelers.
Yeah.
But that was in Nashville, and it was a very unique experience, and some really sweet people took me under their wing and taught me a lot of technical things like video editing and color correction, and photography was always a hobby of mine, so that sort of just kind of meshed together. But yeah, I spent.
So you actually initially started it with video, right? That was your main thing right away?
Yeah, so what they were creating content for all of their artists, just to start building their YouTube channels. I mean, this was years ago, so it was kind of new, but they were pretty quick on creating a lot of content for YouTube.
Did you have any photography? You said it was a hobby, but was it ever a paid gig thing before Yamaha?
No, it was always a hobby. I was taking photos for fun and for my bands, and just pure joy and hobby. So
when was the first time you realized that this is becoming kind of a profession in terms of photography, especially? For
photography, I think it was my next gig, which was down here in Florida at a video production house. Again, video, I'm on set a lot. I'm in a studio. I was really, Instagram was very new. It seemed like everyone was a photographer all of a sudden. And I love photography. So I think I started taking it seriously, and I was like, I want to learn lighting. I'm really interested in product photography and still life, because that seems very, I'm just really drawn to that personally. And also I think it kind of sets me apart from the people in my area. Like I said, I feel like everyone is a lifestyle photographer. If you have an iPhone, I'm taking photos for everyone. So that was intentional, and I think I really started taking it serious there. And the people I worked with, super talented, and I just like absorbed all the knowledge and watched how they were setting up the lights, and basically it was kind of my lighting school, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And then, so right after the production house, what happens next? Where do you go?
Well, I call it a production house. That place was very special. We did a lot of different things, a lot of cool things, documentaries and commercials, and that's where we started an apparel brand within. Mm-hmm. So it was like a house of creative ideas, and I got to run wild and do lots of fun stuff. So that was really, really fun. A huge learning experience for me. But that ended, and that left me here in Florida. Like, what do I do next? And I just started calling people. I was like, hey, what's happening? Like, what's going on? Like, do you have any jobs that you know of? Like, I'm looking for something special. I wanted something. I didn't want to just like get a job. Like, I was looking for something special. And then a mutual friend of a friend connected me with my boss at Corkcicle, and it just kind of happened. Like, really, we got connected, we got drinks, little quick meetup, and it was like, okay, let's do this. And I was one of the first hires at Corkcicle. So they were, I won't say they were young, but they were, how do I put it? They were exploding at the time.
How many years ago is this?
This was
for context?
5 years ago.
Okay.
So they just turned 10. Yeah. So they had already had 5 years under their belt, tons of success, tons. And then when they were really exploding. And when I started, they just needed lots of help. So I kind of just jumped into the deep end, and, they let me run wild and do.
But your first actual experience with e-commerce just in general, and you talked about apparel brand, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that. How were you introduced to actually shooting, like, I'm assuming product photos, right? That was a thing as well for you right away.
Yeah, that was my first e-commerce experience. And that was like literally just me and a couple of guys trying to figure it out with no experience, like starting from scratch. I'm talking like inventory, logistics, like building the website, shooting the photography. Like, I think we had a good grasp on the photography side, like as far as the branding and the lifestyle, but really like the product photography was challenging in and of itself, because it had, some of those shirts had like a pattern, and it had that moire effect, and we were just like, what do we do with this? Because when you saw it on the screen, it looked like this mesh of disaster. I don't know. So that's just one of the problems that stick out to me, that we really had to problem solve that. I don't know. It was starting from scratch and doing every little thing just by, trial and error, I would say.
Any big takeaways from that experience, especially that you can bring on later on to Corkcicle? Yeah,
don't do it by yourself. Do it with a team. And a knowledgeable team, which I could speak forever about Corkcicle. Like, that was another great learning experience of seeing how those guys came together. And there was 4 partners, and each partner was sort of like already successful in their, I would say, vertical. So if you looked at it simply like marketing, sales, finance, and logistics, they had like a master at each one of those. So that was really cool. And each one of them ran their business and built teams strictly for those things. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So my previous experience was just me and a couple of guys trying to figure it out. And then I go into like a real operation where these guys are experienced and understand you got to like bring a team together to pull off the big idea.
But then I guess the cool thing was that being able to run wild and try out different things later on, help not be scared essentially to go into bigger things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's my personality, is just go and do it, And luckily when Corkcicle has been very successful. And when they were growing so fast, it was like, we just need people to just do. Like, don't come and ask me to do something. Like, come and tell me what you did and did it work. If it didn't, what did you do to fix it?
Mm-hmm. I love that
So, and I love
mentality.
that mentality. Yeah, I love that mentality. It's just like, go and do it and problem solve. And I think it takes a certain kind of person to thrive in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't know, I enjoyed it. It was good for me.
So you come into Corkcicle. Would you say that you came in like at a turning point for the company?
Yeah, I would definitely say. And I would call it a milestone. And they've had many before me and many since I was there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely a milestone.
But what would you say? What was the environment like that allowed for that? Was that something that was happening in e-commerce just in general in the U.S., or was it specific to the company?
There's a lot of factors, and I would say when I started, it was more just pure organic growth and success of just people loving the product and discovering it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes in to like e-commerce, that was not the focus when I started, but it quickly became like, oh, we really need to invest in this. This is really important. It's really, like it's been a pretty strong trend. And then
Yeah.
I mean, fast forward to last year and everyone just explodes. And yeah,
So
I would say it slowly became a priority of investment. Yeah.
okay, and then was there like a paradigm shift in terms of the approach to content, right? Because I'm assuming before that, before e-commerce, right? There's no product sale without a photo in terms of e-commerce. So
Right.
how does the approach change? What was the big things that you guys realized or started doing that you weren't doing before that?
I mean, the simple answer is just more. Like it wasn't a major
Mm-hmm.
strategy shift. It was just more.
Okay, and then so you come into Corkcicle. What was your first big project in terms of design or art direction? Yeah, in the way.
Man, I look back on my first year there, and it's like unbelievable the amount of things we just jumped right into. One was a really big photo shoot that I produced and art directed and helped just like pull off with the team, of course. And that was with some ambassadors that we had just signed on and decided to launch at that time.
Now, what was your general the process behind creative briefings and stuff like this? How would you start? How would you essentially choose which direction you're going with, or the prerequisite for that?
I mean, I think for everything, it's answering why. Like, why are we doing this? What's the purpose? What's the goal? Like that. That's the baseline for any production, any piece of content, any art direction is like why. And I think we slowly we got better at that. I wouldn't say, that's something you practice and you get better at all the time. So I wouldn't say I've mastered it, but it is very important.
Judging by like your portfolio and then looking at the work that you've done at Corkcicle, you seem like it seems like you've mastered just in general these lively lifestyle kind of images that show how the product thrives within the environment. But talk to me a little bit about catalog photos, because that's a beast of its own. What was your approach to that? How much resources was put into lifestyle imagery in comparison to like catalog and product photos?
Well, thank you for that compliment. Approach to catalog photography. Well, that's the whole thing, is showing the product being used and like what its benefit is. Like, why do people want this? Again, it's answering why. But really, the fun part about Corkcicle was just showing the colors and showing the patterns and just exploring more of the aesthetic world. There was always a balance of like pushing the brand versus pushing the features. And I think they've gotten a lot better at doing that and over the years. And basically it just took a long time to define the different types of content because the company was growing, the products are scaling, the offering is getting bigger. So it's constantly changing. Like every 6 months was a whole new company. Like literally.
And you
Like we're
guys are
putting
like
out.
Corkcicle is known for their collaborations. So how does that happen? How do you guys find them? How do you start to align your visions with every collaborator that you work for? What's the process
Mhm.
like there?
It's all over the board. I think a lot of it, well, not a lot of it. Some of it is just personal relationships, being at trade shows, going to license events, like one loving design. Like um, my boss there at Corkcicle, he loves art, he loves design, so he's constantly looking for the new thing because he loves it,
Mm-hmm.
and that really guided a lot of our collaborations. But they're all different. They're all absolutely different. No one is cookie cutter. Every relationship is different. Um, so yeah, it's just like I would say if you boiled it down, it's just loving design and wanting to expand the product line.
Have you had a specific one that you were a fan of across your work
Oh
in
yeah,
Corkcicle?
for sure. Well, the very first one was a personal connection to me, which was the Rifle Paper
Mm-hmm.
Company corporation. And they are local to our area and just old friends of ours. So that was like a really fun one of two Florida brands coming together to do something really cool. So that one was special. And then um, there's been, they're all like great and unique in their own way, but obviously Star Wars is a big one that came out
Yeah.
last year. I mean, that's like next level brand collaboration. Um,
I mean
but
Disney.
there's one,
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, Disney. I mean,
How,
what a great collaboration to do with Disney.
how much like what was their part? What part did they play? How much of a input or did they partake in the creation of the photos or just on the design stage? Can you just tell me more about that collaboration?
Yeah, like I said, they're all different. I think working with Lucasfilm, they have this whole Star Wars world that you get to play in. There's a lot of leeway, and then there's a lot of like very specific things. Like you can't put this character wearing this uniform in this universe or
Mm-hmm.
world or spaceship because he never was there in the movies. And if you're a fan of Star Wars, and like Star Wars fans are notoriously like uh, I don't know what the word is.
Nerdy, I guess, about the
I mean, like they know
yeah,
every little detail.
yeah.
So like if you get a detail wrong, you're never going to live it down. So there was that to keep in mind in our creative process, but our product team killed it. And that kind of goes into like a lot of before marketing and before the creative, the product team is working on the brief. So we kind of get handed off a lot of thought process and a lot of design inspiration. So it's kind of they do a lot of the hard work and sort of pave the way for marketing to make
Mm-hmm.
beautiful photos and content.
What are the bigger challenges there? Like, working within the frames that they set. Like,
Yeah, I would say um, I'd say this as a compliment. Like we at Corkcicle, we move so fast that we are able to quickly turn things around. And for a big collaboration like that, there's so many people involved. It really makes you slow down and like dial in all the planning and make sure everything is pre-approved. And that that's a good thing, but it's just something we weren't like totally had mastered yet. And that was last year, and I would say totally comfortable doing it now. So
mm-hmm.
that's just a testament to how quick the Corkcicle team adapts and can pump it out and work amazingly with
One
other
thing that I
people.
personally admire about Corkcicle is wherever you look, whether it's Instagram, the website, or anywhere else, any other platform, you can see the consistency between the creative process, right? Between the catalog photos, between the identity. So I want to talk about, just in general, the process of creating style guides. What was the process of, what are like the Corkcicle secrets of having that consistency across, all platforms?
Yeah, well, the secret is keep it simple and strive for consistency. I mean, that's why I would say we've worked with Squareshot for 5 years. It's like there's a consistency there. Every time we send product, it comes back. We know exactly what to expect, and that translate when you go to our website. Like I would say, 95% of the photography in the product photography is like spot on, and that other 5% is old photography that I did, so it's not as good as so it's like legacy stuff. But yeah, consistency across the board. I mean, that's if you can know if you know your brand and know why you're doing what you're doing, and then just stick to that message, whether it's your copy or your visuals, like you're gonna win. Like if you have a style guide, stick to it forever, like, and it's your Bible.
And I want to ask this really quick as well. So, per se, there's a new brand. It's about to start shooting their first, collections and everything. And they want to do, hero shots, these more advertising kind of shots. Do you have any recommendations to where to begin, what to, or what to put your attention in, and just in general, how to not go overboard in terms of like, because, when you go creative, right, there's really no cap on that. And sometimes you can go over budget, or sometimes you can, run out of time. What is your advice in general?
I mean, it depends on what the brand mission is. Like, what is their goal? What are they trying to do? Like, if it's just to like make noise and be seen, is it I don't know. I'm always a very much a less is more kind of person, and that's I lean towards that aesthetic. Like, let the color speak for itself, let the product speak for itself. I don't know. I don't know what the magic answer for that one is, but
I don't think there is one. I think there's yours.
If you know your brand, lean into it and own it. Like, don't try to be like someone else's brand, or if you see an ad, you're trying to emulate this. Like, really, it's all that strategy and work on the front end of a brand. Like, lean into that and own it, and then make sure you're partnering with people who can translate that, and just lean into it.
There's a big question to ask is, so you leave Corkcicle, and the first question, the big one, is why? What goes into in your head at that time? Because Corkcicle is exploding, and it still is, and I am a personal fan in terms of the brand itself and the product and the way you guys you did and they're doing the business right now, right? So why?
I think you might have answered it for me. They are exploding. They're getting bigger and they're growing, and that's the goal, is to scale. And I think it took me a long time to realize that I really enjoy the smallness. Like, I think I can come into a small organization and do a lot of damage in a good way. Like, I can get a lot done with efficiency. But yeah, I would say, I don't know. I don't want to come off the wrong way. And
no, speak your mind.
Yeah, it's like maybe it's gotten too big for me. Yeah, so I think I enjoy the entrepreneurial aspect, the smallness of teams, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, personally, Squareshot is built upon the same principles and the things that you mentioned in the beginning. It's like, don't tell me you can't do it, or don't tell me what you're gonna do. Just do it, and then if you had issues, fix it, and have this instant approach, right? Where between you and the progress is just one person. Maybe you are the person in between you and the company, and progress in general. So
yeah.
I guess So I'm completely on board with you on that one. And so what was going in your head at that time? Did you know that you want to go and open your space?
No, I think it took me a long time to process it, and I will blame all of this on my business partner, Chris Ladwick. He's sort of, I would say he's like legend around here. Like, he has won all these awards, super humble guy, amazing talent. He's worked at a bunch of agencies around here, and everyone just looks up to him. He's just so good. And he actually worked on the Corkcicle brand before I even went there. So like,
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he also worked on Corkcicle.
That's
and
cool.
Yeah, so there was a lot of really cool things that happened where we just sort of synced up as friends, like our families became friends. And honestly, we hit it off and became really good friends. And then, over a couple of conversations, it's like, oh, we should join forces and do this together. And it was like, before we knew it, we started thinking the process. We started building out our strategy of what Poolboy Studio would be, and coming up with a name, and like really just, it was cool because we had all the time in the world to like dream and dial and tweak everything. And then it was like, okay, are we going to do this? When are we going to do this? I would say it was just a big idea that we talked about a lot. And then suddenly it was like, well, let's see if we can make a move on it. And I don't know, we put a couple of feelers out, and I feel like we proved the concept pretty quickly, and it was like, let's go.
And so this is kind of a comeback, like a throwback to the time that you worked at the video production house, right? Where again, it's like, the space that you can go wild and, test out your creativity, I guess. Can you draw a lot of parallels from, two of these experiences?
I mean, yeah, every experience is built on to like give me more experience and confidence to do the next thing. So absolutely, like I can look back at all my previous gigs and jobs and experiences playing music, and it's like it all points to just getting better and more well-rounded, and kind of like honing in what I want to do and what my perspective is, I would say.
And is there like a big feeling change in terms of now that you're working for yourself?
Honestly, I was like waiting for this big momentous feeling, and we've been so busy. Like it honestly just feels like not a lot has changed. Though I would say the mental weight of thinking about it beforehand, before we launched, is gone, and now it's just like, okay, we're doing it, and we're busy, and it's great, and let's keep working. Right now, we're just focused on working and doing the best job on every job we can. So it's cool. It's different, but it's not like it wasn't this momentous thing. It was more like a relief a little bit. So
wow. And so now that we know why, I kind of want to get into how did it happen? How, what's the process behind one coming up with a name even? Can you tell me more about the name?
Chris had a soap company that he was working on, because I would say this, Chris is a master package designer and a brand designer. Like he is just amazing. So that's kind of why we work well together. He's such a great designer, and I'm a photographer, so it's like content and design, like they need each other. And so yeah, we just really great friendship to start, and then we started working on a soap company for fun. And we did a couple of photo shoots just for fun, and we were like, that's kind of what spurred it. It was like, this is going really well, like our working relationship. And just the way we work creatively, like he's very open and flexible, and I think I am too. Like we're pretty laid back. We're very similar in a lot of ways. And it was like, let's just make cool stuff. Like let's make the coolest thing we can. And it was like, okay, let's do that.
And so yeah, and the name itself as well.
Yeah, so we had those experiences with a soap company, and it was like, well, maybe we do this. And like I said, we spent a lot of time strategizing on what it would be and what it wouldn't be, which is almost, it is just as important. Sort of identifying what we're not going to do.
Yeah.
And the name, I really wanted to do Pool House, but so many people had taken it. There was an apparel brand, there was a couple of studios, like even HAUS, like I guess it's like a German or something.
Yeah.
I really wanted to do a pool house. So I was kind of thinking in that vein. And plus, we're in Florida. I'm a big fan.
I mean, yeah, Florida for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm a big fan of like Palm Springs and mid-century era design and lifestyle. So I really wanted that kind of feeling. And at first, we were really going to take it like not that look. We were going to use the name Poolboy, but it was going to be really like hard and edgy. And it was like, that doesn't feel right. So we went fully like mid-century. So we're basically like, if this were a brand or a hotel, what would it look like? And so Chris came up with this logo, and of course we got it on a Corkcicle. So
yeah,
very happy with
nice.
it. Yeah.
And so, okay. And the big question is, on your website, you have this thing where it says that it's photography essentially marries with the design.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the process of marrying photography to design? Because I guess I'm assuming that this is Chris's strongest suit,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you are responsible for photography.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the process of like symbiosis between the two of you?
Yeah, so I would say the design is more print, packaging, branding, and not so much like web or UX or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything that's tangible, like it kind of goes into that e-commerce world. Like anything that's tangible, you need to show it. So there's got to be content of some sort of it. And I feel like that's where the marriage is. And if we're creating consumer packaged goods and boxes and packaging and branding elements or branding touch points, whatever it is, we need a photo of it, right? Or a video,
Yeah.
some sort of content. So like for us, we just feel like they go hand in hand, and I think it really benefits our customers. Being in-house, we can just do that for them, and we're excited to do it anyway, because if Chris designs something awesome, we want to photograph it right away and show it. So you know what I mean? So that's sort of the merit,
Yeah.
I would say.
And speaking of customers, what was your first customer experience like? And what were some like the challenges that you had to overcome? Because no processes are ideal. For example, same like at Squareshot, as you said, we've been in the business for 5 years, and every day you still find things that you can improve on,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in terms of production wise, what are some of the challenges that you had right off the bat when you just had your first customer?
Yeah, so we have been full time for 2 months, so we're still in this transition. We're still learning. We actually said this yesterday, like in January we'll sit down and decide like what have we learned for this first 6 months. So we're sort of in data gathering mode. We know what we're offering, we know what we want to do, and we know what we are doing, and it's working so far. We haven't put any work out. Like our website is very lean. It's just been word of mouth, really close friends that we're working with. So we're just trying to build as much work and portfolio as possible and learn from like what works the best. Luckily, we both have experiences
Mm-hmm.
in this kind of world. So, we talked about this before we launched, and we really had a lot of this stuff set up before. So it's plug and play, like quoting and proposals or templates. We have a rate sheet, and it's just like by the numbers, like just kind of plug and play and do it. And each project is a unique project, and it takes some thinking. But as much as we can like systemize, we kind of have,
Mm-hmm.
just to like get us, closer to the goal line. So I would say every job that comes in, we can quote it, art direct it within a couple of days or faster, and get it out really fast, because we just know our numbers, we know our services, and then whatever is extra or extra unique, we just figure it out as we go.
And that's the question that I really wanted to know as well, is when it comes to extra unique. So there's in general this concept of productization that's happening, productization of services specifically, right? To make it more predictable for certain brands, you have to price, products, services as products. What is your approach in general to pricing, and how do you price creativity? That's a big question, I know.
Yeah, it's well, I think that magic is having trust with someone, and then trusting that you can really excel on the creative side, because there is just like, practical logistics of like, the studio costs this much, the gear is this, and the art director is this, and all this stuff. So when I say we have a rate sheet, like that stuff is listed, and when it comes in, we just base it off time essentially, and then that's when we kind of step back and look at the creative idea. Like, are they coming to us with art direction, or do they need us to art direct it? So, and that's the difference, and that's where it's like flexible, and we're trying to figure it out. But I don't know what the answer is.
You build quotes for every client, but like uniquely, right?
Yes.
Individually.
Yeah, but I don't know what the answer is for like, how do you price creativity? Like, that's probably the magic question that everyone's trying to put their finger on.
Yeah. Because, I mean, that's one of the things that we face as well at Squareshot, that, it's much easier to properly price and productize catalog photos, right? Because, the process there is very straightforward, very transparent. And, you have these setups. So it's easier to identify the cost of good, right? But when it comes to going to the gray area of, creativity, like hero shots, advertising shots, there's a lot of interpretation involved there. There's a lot of personal taste. And so once you start going there, and you start working with back and forth with the client, trying to understand what they want, what they don't want, right? It becomes really hard to just offer a very specific price, right? So your approach, I guess, is just to kind of understand their needs and then start from there.
Yeah. And
do you offer as well like style guides before you go into shoots, especially when it comes to art direction?
I think it depends. We have done that when it's needed, but it's not for every shoot. And I do think it's important to work with people who you can have a relationship with, and there's a give and take and a trust that happens. That's not easy to do right off the bat when it's just like a stranger, but I do think it's important. And that's what we've learned when I was at Corkcicle, working with all these licensed partners. Like, it really is a relationship, and you're both trying to attain a goal and work together on it. So I take that into like consideration when we're talking to customers, and they just, there's got to be a level of trust where they know we're going to deliver really creative and fun, engaging stuff for their brand. And hopefully they have a brand and a brand guideline that we can just say, if we get that, we can work inside those frameworks, and that's a huge step. And if they don't, we can help them with that.
And so that's the question, kind of like, what is your approach when they don't? Because again, this is a battle of tastes in a way, right? And then the studio always comes in as an expert in a way, but at the same time, because there's so much subjectivity involved, how do you start to align expectations if something is not working out?
Well, your first question, if they don't have a style guide, like, or a brand, hopefully that's one of our services. Like, we're definitely gonna have that conversation. But if there's been a few instances where our customers don't, but they have a goal, like they come to us with a campaign. So that kind of builds its own style guide and framework, so we can work within a campaign idea. And it's really a back and forth. Like, we can come up with ideas and present it to them and say, we can do this or we can do this, and we can give them our recommendation. We're always going to do what we are most excited about as Poolboy, unless they come in really strong and say, like, this is what I love, it's got to be this color, like, and here's the message. Like, we can do that too. So it's all about relationships and the personal back and forth. It truly is.
But is there a way to kind of is there anything that you can do beforehand, before jumping into the job, to make sure that the chances of aligning expectations in the end, right, and delivering the product that the client wants, that the chance is higher, essentially?
In that, I see what you're saying, and that kind of gets into, we will build a shot list that's a mood board, and it's like, we're going to get X, Y, and Z shot. It's going to look like these things with these materials and these colors. So yeah, we do build the style guide for a shot list. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of preliminary approval, I guess, of the concept before you go into the actual production process, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we would just call that a pre-production meeting where, like, before we shoot, we make sure you guys good with this stuff? Like, yes, okay, go. And that's like, looking at colors and materials and lighting and vibe and all that stuff.
What is like the general advice that you could give to a brand that's like currently looking for its visual identity? Because when you come in when you start with just the product, right? For example, just any clothing, right? It's really hard to create that universe or like the environment around it to have this kind of a lifestyle image or anything. Mm-hmm. So what can you recommend to brands who are started with just simple products and then want to, diversify and want to go into that world and want to have a brand in the first place?
Yeah, well, they need to know why they're doing it. Like, what's their perspective on the product they're creating? Like, I kind of always say, like, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. But if you really have a vision and you're really like passionate about it, you should know why, and that should translate in through your products and base your brand off that. And my other advice would be, if you don't have a brand, you can contact us at poolboystudio.com.
I want to, quickly jump into the thing that, into authenticity of content, right? And so talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've noticed over the years, people, especially coming from video where you like put, it takes so much work and so much thought to get really beautiful pictures and production. And sometimes it lands flat on e-commerce where really it depends on the category too, like a beauty product where you put all this money into a great production and really the girl in the bathroom on her phone, that video just explodes for you and has really like connects with the audience versus like the high production beautiful video that you shot. And I think that's just really interesting, and it's like I don't want to lose attaining beautiful pictures, but there's a balance that we got to find in content of being authentic, but also like producing aspirational, fun, beautiful images.
I mean, it almost feels like coming into production without an idea, like a solid one as well, feels like a waste of money because you are going to create, this remarkable content. But if your idea is whack and there's no thought behind it, you're kind of really wasting resources. And again, you're better off shooting a really cool idea and the one that aligns with your brand on an iPhone, right? Yeah. Which are like, iPhones are great in terms of like photography, not to discredit anything in terms of like your cameras, but then actually over-investing into production and just not really delivering anything.
Yeah, maybe that ties back into that, like, what are new brands, how do they become efficient and scrappy with their content or make their content go the furthest, is like maybe invest in the idea more than the production. Like, I don't know, it's a balance. As much as I want to make beautiful images only, like, I understand there's that authenticity that's got to connect with the audience, and it's just sometimes it's got to be raw, like a podcast in my home office, like.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I feel like that's something that a lot of people can borrow from like the new generation of even like the Silicon Valley. There's like the concept of MVP, right? When people are essentially, they want to get it out as soon as possible and then start to like get feedback. And based on that, they're going to, tune out the processes and, make it better. But first, just get it out. Have it, have it there, have it in real life, make it test the waters before you overinvest in.
You know what? I heard that motto a long time ago, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. I think it was when I visited Facebook, the headquarters. They had these posters on the wall that said, "Done is better than perfect," and I was like, "No, it's not. That's not right." And I struggled with it for so long, but now, like, maybe a little bit more experience, I'm like, maybe that's right. You just got to get it out and get better the next time, instead of letting it be a roadblock for yourself of just trying to attain perfection. And I think a lot of creative people struggle with that. Really just like get it out, move to the next thing, and get better the next time. As long as you're learning and building on your every experience and every job. Like that's the goal. So like my good friend Greg, he always is like, are you better than you were a year ago? Like look at your work now and then look a year ago. Are you better? And it's like, obviously, like, wow, what was I doing last year? That's terrible. If you can say that, then you're really like, and maybe there's like some personal check-ins you need to do to make sure you're moving forward. But I do think that this is a conversation a lot of creative people have of like just getting hung up on perfection and, you know, not being happy.
And plus, also, you're trying to attain your personal standards, maybe not even like this the people that you're creating this for, right? So sometimes it's better to let it go.
Yeah, that's a hard one. It's hard to, I don't know. Sometimes you recognize it, but it's hard to like practice on it or like act on it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You're like, I need to just like let this go. But
I mean, that's a great obstacle in terms of like just in general for photography, especially for any creatives that should probably start learning a little bit more from more hands-on practical people in terms of like, this is it. We're going to move on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That, man, that goes into a whole rabbit hole of like comparison and social media. Like, I feel like if the creative community, especially like photographers and designers, especially in a community, like if you can be supportive and encouraging and even like have an educational mindset of like, let's like share tips and encourage each other. Like I'm all about that. Like I think that's super important. I get the sense there's a lot of negativity and like cutthroat creatives out there who are just like, you know, just spitting on everybody's work and whatever.
Actually, this is kind of, you know, that's about it. No. What you mentioned is, you know, delivering content in terms of like the way social media is right now, where sometimes raw but authentic content, you know, outsells. I don't want to use that word, but outsells the high production content that takes, you know, a long time to shoot. So isn't that, I don't want to say scary, but how do you create high-end content now if there's a world where people can literally just spend less and get more out of it? So what's kind of your, you know, should you really invest into high-end content? That's kind of a big question.
Yeah, I mean, that it is scary for sure. And this kind of goes back to like, we want to make beautiful images, but it's like, if the selfie video is performing better, it's like, oh, it's real, it's authentic. I will say you need to know your brand. And then when you see things that are like cutting corners, or it's kind of a cheap reiteration of an idea that's been done 100 times on Instagram, like people know, like you see it. I think it's just about, I don't know, it depends on the brand, but for me it's like, are you having fun? Is this fun to do? Are you like learning every time? Are you trying new lighting techniques and trying to present a product in a new, fresh way? Like, I think it has to be a personal thing, but I'm constantly trying to make more and more beautiful images and more high-end images. So that is a scary conversation. I don't know what I get the reality, and I think a brand needs a mix. Like I think there's got to
balance to be upkept.
Yeah, there can be a mix. Yeah, because I don't know, it goes into like, I don't know, there's different channels, like all the different channels. You have social channel
and different people as well, different audiences. So you for example, the high end content is something that catches your eye. The authentic content is something that builds your loyalty and trust towards the actual brand, right? And then you're gonna get the final content, which can be like catalog or product imagery, which is like that thing that's gonna persuade you to, you know, to make the purchase or anything. So I guess you can't really avoid any of that. You have to be present everywhere in a way.
I mean, that's so frustrating because who can do that? You know, like I agree with you, and I think that I've up until this point I've always taken the stance that the content and the message they don't change. Like the channels change. Like you make the content and you tell your story, you tell your brand story, and then you put them out into the channels. Now, I get like splitting hairs of like, well, you can't post the same photo on all your, I don't know, that's a brand strategy, but like,
Do you think that there's a world where like you're spreading the butter too thin by trying to appeal to, every single demographic, every single channel?
oh yeah,
Should you just
sure.
focus on something?
I think it depends on the size of your company or your brand, but yeah, like, and maybe that's just my strong personal opinion is like, know who you are and focus on what you do and just like lean into it. Don't try to be all things to all people. And maybe I'm speaking like that is our guiding factor, Chris and I with Poolboy. It's like, we're not gonna. So I guess there's a book we read. I think his name's Eli Altman, and he gave an analogy about Cheesecake Factory, the restaurant. I don't know if you're familiar, but the menu is a book. It's this thick. It's got like 300 menu items on it. And you can sit down and literally you can go there and have anything you can think of. But like, is it going to be as good as going to the Italian restaurant that only makes whatever? You know what I'm saying? Or the steak restaurant that they have 2 things on the menu. So we've like decidedly leaned towards having that small menu. Like, this is what we focus on. We're not going to be all things to all people. Because I can't wrap my head around that. Like, I don't see how that works for any brand or any company trying to like please everyone, because that's impossible.
And that's also something that we also can borrow from like the Silicon Valley in terms of like 100 better, loyal customers that really love your product and are going to talk about your product to their peers is way better than having like 1,000 or 10,000 customers that are like A-okay with it, because it doesn't go past that, right?
Yeah.
So essentially it kind of stays at the mark because no one is passionate enough to spread the word.
Yeah, I agree. Like that. That's exactly right.
I mean, what's ahead right now for you? What are like some of the biggest things that you want to tackle in the future in terms of like the processes, for example, or in terms of like, expanding your the amount of services you provide?
Yeah. Let's see. The whole world is ahead. We've got a lot of photo shoots coming up. It's funny because we're still, like I said, we're still learning. We're still in this transition. At first, it was a lot of design projects. Now it's a lot of photo projects, and we're trying to find a sweet spot of like building brands and then executing on the brands. So like really looking for long-term relationships with startup brands where we can start with them right from the beginning and then carry through on executing on content. There's been a couple that are like that, but really it's that's kind of our focus, is finding those type of partners.
Mm-hmm. And there's this recurring segment that I always want to approach, because you've been in the content production business for a while now. And is there any stereotypes about the business, about the industry, about the process, for example, that you'd like to break for all the clients out there?
Well, I don't know if this is stereotype, but the first thing that comes to mind is like I've noticed a lot of cheap services for creative content popping up. And without saying any names, it's like you get what you pay for is what I want to say. And that kind of goes across the board, probably for every creative service. Like, you really get what you pay for. And if you value your brand, you'll invest in it. And it's important to invest in how you present yourself and taking yourself seriously. I think a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around the value of design. Not everyone, but I do see it can be a problem for some people, because some people are so sales oriented. They're like, just get it out there. Like, it doesn't matter what it looks like, so there's a balance. I don't know. I don't know if that breaks any stereotypes, but
I think that's one of the biggest stereotypes that I believe people have in terms of like in general. The value of content is, because again, like you mentioned that as well, even though e-commerce has been here for a while, it's still relatively young in terms of like if you were to compare it to just traditional commerce, right? And it feels like there's a common misconception that content is a choice. So it's no longer a choice. One, it's a commodity, right? And two, it's the reason why commerce exists in the first place. So understanding the value and also, aligning your expectation in terms of like what is the process as well helps you to get better results. Knowing your things, knowing your product, knowing your brand, as you mentioned as well, kind of, it helps you to have a better synergy with the studio because you guys are both working towards the same result. Right. And so it's kind of, if they understand your process and you understand their process, then you're more likely to, achieve something that's better than, a mediocre or, get those unique shots, get those unique, scenes and everything. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that stereotype. And I mean, I feel like that's a great moment to kind of, wrap it up. I am very excited that we got finally to speak. And I'm also very excited to talk to Chris. Hopefully we can get him on, on the first season of Squaretalk and talk about design more, because that's kind of like the big thing you guys have, this unique kind of synergy, as you call it, marriage, almost.
Well, I mean, I'll say this, I'll be candid with you. I'm always behind the scenes. I'm never the one in front of the camera. Like this is, so you got me. Now that you got me, you got to get Chris. We'll get him out.
100%.
Yeah.
Again, Dylon, thank you so much for coming. It was really, really fun to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you to the whole team at Squareshot. I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
See ya.